What's up, everybody? Welcome. It is Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. I'm Guy, that's John, and we're brought to you by our friends at Tito's Handmade Vodka. When I'm sitting down to watch Coach Prime at 9 a.m. Pacific on Saturday morning, it will be with a Tito's Handmade Vodka.
I don't know if Prime's a drinker. I would guess he's not.
Darn.
I'm pretty sure he isn't. But if he was, I bet Shador and Shiloh. I feel like Shiloh's not getting the proper love, led the team in tackles. They should have a nice Tito's soda, a nice Tito's lemonade. Tito's lemonade, if you're going to play a little golf sometime. Tito's lemonade, if you're not going to just go with the Arnold Palmer, that's an easy one. If you're going out, just grab a Tito's.
Tito's and tea, little Tito's and ginger, a little Tito's espresso martini to start the night. I like first drink, John, in the evening. If it's going to be a little late, first drink is the Tito's martini. The espresso martini, excuse me, with the Tito's.
That actually might not be a terrible drink to go with 9 a.m. Prime Matt Rule to kind of get the juices flowing. You know?
Speaking of the juice, bro, Matt Rule, nobody has more pressure on them this week than Matt Rule.
They're losing.
Rivalry game, already lost, going to play this one, 9 a.m. If you lose this game, John, it's on. Like, that's the thing about playing a 9 a.m. game. The highlights are all day. Like, you don't get to go to bed for a long time. You just want to go to sleep. But if you lose the game, you don't get to go to sleep for a long time.
Isn't that why the Pac-12 wanted these 9 a.m. games? They get Christian McCaffrey highlights going all day. And
that's right.
Mike Tomlin could talk about him as the best open field runner in the league.
That's right. He's the key to the whole Niners offense. That's what he said. Anyway, Tito's Handmade Vodka. We appreciate them. We appreciate you supporting Tito's very much. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof. Crafted to be savored responsibly.
I played golf on, what day would this have been? Labor Day weekend, Sunday morning, with the guy that works in the alcohol business. His company is partners with Tito's essentially, and he's been in the business for a long time, and he's hung out with Tito a couple times. He said both times Tito, same outfit, jeans, boots, white polo, easygoing guy. He's just one of those classic guys. Anyone that has an interaction with him, when you get that famous, it can be hit or miss. It's always the same. Like, love the guy. He was awesome. I wish I could hang out with him again.
Tito Beveridge. His last name is Beveridge.
What an incredible life.
What a run. It's not over either. Just continue.
Cops at your house right now?
Did you hear that? I don't know what that was. He's like Mike Tomlin. Except he wins championships more recently, but
yeah. So he's just like the champion. He just owns the championship belt.
He's just the guy. So
yeah,
I did watch Tomlin. Did you watch any of Tomlin talk on Tuesday?
Yeah, I just had it on probably 30 minutes ago, and it's just maybe I just might make it a weekly occurrence. Just check out whatever he's saying.
They asked him about special teams. He's like, if you have a splat, because I guess last year they had some big special teams plays, or maybe they had some in the preseason. They did have some in the preseason, and they asked him. He's like, early season special team splash plays, it's more about negligence than top flight performance. That was a great line.
How would you then equate the 49ers special teams performances over the years?
Well, they maintain the negligence weeks 1 through 17.
Yeah.
And into the draft and the offseason.
I wonder how Tomlin would describe, it's actually aged pretty well for Hightower because it's just kind of sustained, with him gone. The Seattle a couple years ago performance where they had a fake punt that the guy literally walked backwards into the end zone as he was waved everybody. I've never seen a guy go slower with no one even around. What are you guys doing?
Extreme negligence is
that to me performance. Was there 2 special teams touchdowns in that game for Seattle?
I feel like there was another thing that happened in that game. Was there a bad fumble?
Yeah, man, that's a performance that you think would change the landscape of how you approached it, but no, it didn't really. It felt like forgotten about him a week later.
Is that Brian Schneider?
Yeah, maybe that's why Kyle fell in love with the guy. Yeah. He did the classic, he did it to me. Why don't we just take this guy when he's available?
It's a very college thing to do.
You think Kyle knew? I mean, give me a fucking break. He doesn't care about special teams. Do you think he had a breakdown besides wait, that guy's available? Pete just fired him? Was that the guy that dialed up that play?
I don't even. I think he hired him and was like, "Oh, you're the same branch. That's you. You're the guy." Oh man, nice. I saw that. I remember that. Nice play. I mean, I was over there talking to Garoppolo, but they told me about it later. I didn't watch the film because I don't watch special teams film, but like I said, Saleh told me it really killed us, put us in a bad spot. So
Do you think Jimmy got a little aggressive with his weird comment with 2 or 3 days later, a dude on the Raiders is Instagramming that he's locked out of the building? His fucking head coach that he's known for a decade, he thought they were boys, and the only guy he could lean on is his defensive coordinator. Like, welcome to the circus, Jimmy.
called the GM a Harvard bitch or Ivy bitch or something like that. You see that? And why are the Raiders calling? He claims the Raiders are communicating with his
No.
mother?
The defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, I think is like a Harvard or Yale guy.
Oh, okay.
He's an Ivy League guy.
Ziegler's not?
Ziegler is with Josh and like the day ball, whatever that Ohio little school is, that they all went to.
Yeah. The school of the mines or whatever.
Yeah, the Cal Poly of Ohio that they all like claim is like some dominant program that no one's ever heard of outside of Ohio.
John Carroll.
It's like they speak about it like it's Georgia meets Alabama plus the Cowboys. Like, guys, no one fucking outside of this region gives a shit about this.
Right. What's the place where the Marines train? Pendleton? They're like, yeah, it's camp. It's like their Camp Pendleton.
Yeah. Coach Williamstead, he's been coaching there for 45 years. He changed our lives. Like, yeah, guys, come on. Then Telesco went there. I mean, there's like 17 NFL guys, that are scattered throughout the NFL that act like John Carroll is like Alabama in the 50s with Bear Bryant.
Don't worry, Jimmy. Over under Halloween for Garoppolo's last start for the Raiders.
Was Chandler Jones the guy that against the Patriots when Jacoby Myers threw it back to Mac Jones and Chandler Jones got it? It was him, correct? And walked it back into the end zone.
Wasn't Theo Moore.
No, so I thought everything was hunky dory with Chandler, but of course, just week one, the Raiders. You never know.
Naked Police Station was Chandler, right?
Yeah, and then Belichick immediately
shouldn't be
traded
defined by your worst moment, but
no, it was synthetic weed too, so you didn't quite know what was coming.
Mm-mm.
Can you imagine Chandler Jones? It's not like he's me or you, right? I mean, he's a pretty dominant defensive end in like the height of the Patriots dynasty. Walking in, like, what is going on? Should we call Bill?
Bill's like, he's your problem now.
Yeah, he never played another snap for the Patriots.
Brian on the chat says, Bosa, 32.5 per year. I'm calling it. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast, it's great to have you in audio form. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, that's great too. Like and subscribe. All right, John, let's dive into it. You want to hear what Rap Sheet said today?
Yeah.
No, and I would say this, and I know it's been said on social media, and this point has been made, but I will still make it. The Bosas take their value extremely seriously. From the top, from the father, to Joey Bosa, to Nick Bosa. If there was one family that could ever hold out into the season, this would be it. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I'm just saying this is one family that believes what they believe and will take that stance like essentially Nick Bosa have done. This is a hard contract to do. My understanding is the 49ers are already over $30 million per year. They're already over TJ Watt. He is going to be the highest paid pass rusher in the NFL. That is not the question. The question is, does he beat Aaron Donald's contract of 31, either 0.4 or 0.7 million? I can't remember right now, but somewhere
0.7.
So that's the biggest question, 0.7. There you go. But that's not just it. There was a $5 million roster bonus that Aaron Donald got when he decided not to retire. So how to account for that, which is spread out over the years, it's extremely complicated, and trying to figure out where Aaron Donald came in will help get this deal done. But the two sides obviously have a disconnect in how it's configured.
So the Bosas are saying Aaron didn't sign 3 for 95. Aaron signed 3 for 100. That's what the Bosas are saying. And so that means that we want 34 million a year, which is 170 million.
It's just not about the yearly averages. And everyone is just obsessed with that. We know the 49ers care about a couple things. Out times, like when can we get out of the contract? And first and foremost, how much truly is guaranteed? How much we have to put in escrow? How big your signing bonus is? How much are we talking 112? Are we talking 130? The yearly average, you can fudge the living what out of it. That's obsessed. Everyone's talking about that. That's not what they're arguing over. It's about guaranteed money, and we know the 49ers going back to Kaepernick Love that little out clause. Obviously, for him, it would be not every year, but it could be, is it 3 years or 4 years at the league year? They love that 5 days after the league year starts, so it gives them wiggle room to like, anything better? Can we upgrade? If I'm going to break up with you, can I find another girlfriend? Because if I can't, then I'll just keep rolling with you. So the 49ers are, whatever this argument is over guaranteed dollars and the yearly structure. Everyone's going to talk about how much the year. I think that's so irrelevant. Like the TJ Watt conversation, ultimately, when he barged into Rooney, was about the guaranteed money. That's what all these contracts are about. I don't understand why we're so obsessed with yearly. Like, would George Kittle have been better off signing? You could argue no, because he's going to end up playing out the $75 million contract, but his $33 million contract, a 3-year deal for, less guaranteed than he ended up getting. So, but for 40 guaranteed, like true every penny guaranteed, right? That's what the NFL contracts are always arguing over, is guaranteed money. Like that's what Donald, he makes 30 a year, but it was all guaranteed. Every penny, basically. Right?
I think I agree with you, because this is always the case, right? Where the initial number comes out. But I think the reason it comes up so much with this Bosa conversation specifically is that from a guaranteed dollars standpoint, there's really no contest. Like the deal that Donald got was only 3 years. So his guarantee, before we even debate anything, is going to be bigger than Aaron's. And Joey's deal, which is the biggest for practical guarantees, is a 3-year-old contract that he got $102 million guaranteed on, right? So in terms of comps, like I think the AAV comes up a lot with this argument or with this conversation, because that's where the comps are. There's really no comps on the practical guarantee, because like you said, or like I just said, the numbers are old and small. So he's 115 would dwarf Joey's, and maybe like you said, he wants more. I wondered at the beginning, maybe he wants it all guaranteed, like quarterback style.
Why wouldn't he? If I was him, that's what I'd be asking for.
100%. But I also think the reason the AAV keeps coming up is because all the reporters who there's been like these little soft leaks, I've been calling them, with the Niners and Joe and Nick. Like it's not, because they all promised we're not going to leak anything, but there's just been a little soft leaks, and all the soft leaks are about AAV, and they're about Aaron Donald's money. Right.
Well, think of what Aaron Donald's contract was, right? And you and I texted about this. Khalil Mack is still playing on the contract like Aaron Donald that they signed, like that 6-year extension. Aaron Donald got to the point in his contract when he dropped, "I'm going to retire." It was also AKA, my contract is now fake, NFL standards. So if I ever shatter a leg or something goes wrong, you can throw me to the trash like you did with Todd Gurley. You can just get rid of me. So he didn't get, it wasn't like he was a free agent or coming into the last year of his deal and get $100 million over 3 years or whatever it worked out to be, I guess, with that bonus. He basically got his remaining contract fully guaranteed, but that wasn't even close to the number, so they had to add $10 million a year on it. They had an extra $30 million to get to the 31 whatever threshold. So it was like Khalil hasn't been good enough, and he's been banged up to even entertain that shit, where Donald was the opposite. He was elite, the player of the year, Super Bowl champ. But that was not like what Nick and Joey attacked. They were going to be free agents or go into that franchise tag within a year mode. Let's get something worked out. So they're a little different, right? Donald just got kind of taken care of with a contract that was about to become fake, where Joey, Myles Garrett, TJ got just contract extensions.
Right.
I guess is the way I would look at it. And that's what Nick is going to get, a contract extension. But he's going, look at these guys years ago, and I'm trying to change precedent. I got the leverage, right? It's all about comps, but sometimes if you go to Malibu or Paradise Valley or Manhattan, comps get thrown out the window with premium real estate, and I'm premium real estate. I'm closer to a quarterback than Kittles and Debo in terms of the way you deal with them, because you can add Kittles. That's what Tomlin calls them, Kittles. Kittles.
They call him Debo's. Debo's Samuel, too.
Kittles, Debo's. So that's 30 plus 60. That's 90. And then Fred, 27. He might want guaranteed what those 3 guys got combined. And this is where I think the 49ers, and you and I have talked about this. I went on our buddy Kawakami's podcast today. They have never been in an uncomfortable situation. Even the Jimmy Garoppolo contract, they knew within 12 months that thing was so tiny. I mean, he was a $25 million quarterback 3 years later when guys were making 48. And not all of them are Mahomes. I mean, we're talking Dak and some of these guys that are in Jimmy's world. Cousins making 38. Jimmy was making dramatically less than him. This is the first uncomfortable. Debo was uncomfortable because it was like, okay, Debo, your little trade request, shape-wise, it wasn't like, if Debo's balling, if he looked like he did in the preseason, whatever. Nick's about like, this is the biggest contract in franchise history by a mile. By double. What are the biggest? Jimmy, Trent, and Debo. 70, 60, and 60, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like those three numbers. Nick's probably in the 120, 130 mode. As he should be.
They knew they could bully Debo with love. Like they knew they could just wear Debo down. Much like the way he plays, you can't wear Bosa down. And Rap Sheet keeps repeating this thing about the Bosa family, He keeps mentioning dad and the brothers. Never mentions mom. And I feel like mom might be pushing this a little bit too. But know
Nick would if there were like two other Nicks, let's say TJ, Nick, and like another version of
like
that.
If Myles Garrett and Chase Young were all as good as Nick.
Well, yeah, and they were all signing contracts like Nick. If they're all signed at 112, okay, we'll give you 115, but we can't give you 130. Debo was swimming upstream with the crew, right? The Dandy crew. There were three of them. So we couldn't give you 48, but we don't have to give you 70. Like the crew was all between 58 and 60. Trent, think about him, who was a true free agent. Chiefs are offering 58.5. It's like, okay, here's 60. Like Nick's kind of on an island right now. Because even Chris Jones, you'd be like, well, that's his third contract, and he's kind of doing the Aaron Donald version, right?
Yeah.
I am getting my real big, contract extension, which in the NFL could be the last extension he ever gets, right? It's just the way football works.
There's not that many guys that can challenge the structure of, the top 10 or the top 15 paid guys or quarterbacks, right? But if anybody could try, Bosa's on the short list. So if I'm him, I think part of the argument might be like, guys, would you rather have Kyler Murray than me? Because Kyler's got 160 guaranteed on his deal. 160. And they're gonna tank and replace him this year. And they're paying him $160 million. So I don't care what position he plays and what position I play.
Team captain, Kyler Murray. He was
How many
named team
captains
captain.
they got?
By the coach, though, not a vote.
Okay. I saw the Steelers did their votes. Najee Harris, weirdly, not an offensive captain for the Steelers. Only Kenny Pickett was an offensive captain.
Might not be their best running back guy.
They got a little weird. But 160 million guarantee, because like that'd be part of the argument if I'm Bosa. It's like, so the argument for me to not get 160, which is what Kyler got, is just that he plays quarterback and I play pass rusher. Well, go check the NFL 100. Would you trade me for him straight up? No, not even close. You wouldn't even think about it. You are praying he stays in the league for the next decade so I can chase his ass down.
I'd
So
be like,
I don't know
Kyle,
what you guys are talking about. Why don't talk to me about TJ Watt or almost retired Aaron Donald.
Kyle, be honest. Would you trade Darnold straight up for Kyler Murray? We know the answer.
No. That list of guys he traded Darnold straight up for is like 10 guys.
4 quarterbacks. Yeah, might be small.
No, none of them are quarterbacks. They're all interior defensive linemen, Kyle's favorite. So
I think the Niners are very consistent that they get to win deals. And because Parag's the lead at his job, and they do. They get to win every deal. And part of it is luck of like their best players play positions that are cheap relative to like the quarterbacks. And I'd even say Trent was unique. He was older. He had been the cancer situation. He had sat out a year. It wasn't.
His list of teams was probably small, right? He didn't want to play for. He wasn't going to just go take the most money if the Texans offered it.
Well, look who it really came down to. Chance to win Super Bowl, the Chiefs.
Right.
Niners got very lucky. He easily could have just been like, fuck it, I'll just go play for Andy and Mahomes. That could have happened. I clearly got pretty close. They benefit from having a really good relationship with Trent. Clearly the Debo thing. There's no emotion involved in this one. I think this is the first time they've ever had, since Parag's ran the cash, where they've thrown out these type monies relative to the position, relative to what it's going to mean right away, and they're getting no's. And they're getting the Rod Tidwell to Jerry Maguire showing me the money. Like, this ain't good enough. More. More.
As
Remember
somebody- as
Miracle? the scene where he's like, again, and they keep doing
Yeah.
the gassers on skates. That's what he's like, more. It just doesn't end. And I applaud Bosa because I'm just pro, like people always think like I'm pro the team or whatever. Well, Saquon Barkley, you would never let him bend you over, right? Luckily, at most positions, it's not even that complicated. This one is like, Bosa's got the leverage, man. And if I'm him, sit out a game, let them loose. Let them really fucking shake in their boots. Because eventually the head guy is going to be like, I don't give a shit, just figure it out.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about this deal is all the deals they've done there's been some level of influence where the skills that John Lynch have and the skills that Kyle Shanahan have interpersonally have come into play, right? Kittle wanted to be here. Debo, we're going to show Debo the love and show him that this is the place for him and he's going to be here. This is a Parag contract. This is not a John Lynch or Kyle step in, make a phone call, have a heart-to-heart with Debo and like, hey man, let's get this done together. We want this to work out for everybody. They don't get to play that role, right? Which is John Lynch's strength. Like that's John Lynch's, he is a fucking interpersonal, that's his thing. Like
none of it matters.
That's why when people have said like, I don't know why the Niners have publicly, they kept acting so confident. Like they're just trying to manage the situation with Nick. It doesn't matter. They agreed we're not going to send messages. That's what it looks like when you're not sending messages through the media. You want to know what it looks like when you do send messages through the media? Go watch Coach Prime's post-game press conference the other day. Those are messages through the media. People are like, it's not the media's job to root for his team. I agree. It's not. Jeff Pearlman went on this whole thing. I agree, Jeff. It's not the media's job. But I think Jeff's right. Like, there are some media that are fanboys, and it's not their job to be fanboys. But my point would be, Jeff, Coach Prime, Deion's not talking to them. He's talking to them, but he's not actually talking to them. A, and B, let me just add this, John. I do think I talked to a guy who covers the Buffs. I'm like, was that acrimonious? He was like, no. I think people always from the outside, it happens with Saban all the time. You don't really know the dynamic with a coach in a media room because they meet with him twice a week, 3 times a week from the outside. And it's usually like a little bit like what Deion does and what Nick does. But I don't think anybody walks out of there, Nick Saban's press conference, go, what? The local guys all have, the reporters all know him, like they have a relationship. And I asked the guy there, like, was that acrimonious? He's like, no, it was like he was having fun with everybody, but he was sending a message to the recruits. He was sending a message to the parents. That's what he was doing. The Niners
wasn't
said,
he talking to Ed Werder? Wasn't Ed Werder one of the guys
was
who
that
was there? Like, yeah.
He's just, I mean, so the Niners said, we're not going to do that stuff. And so all they said in press conferences was, we're confident. I don't actually think they were that confident because I think it's been difficult for them for a while. And we know that John Lynch wanted him here 2 weeks ago and that Kyle probably freaks out about this stuff a little bit. I don't think they were anywhere near as confident as they kept saying they were because they knew it was not moving, that nothing was happening.
Okay,
I don't blame them for that.
On the Prime thing, I'm with you. If you talk or he was mainly, I think, speaking a lot to the print media. If you are going to write something, write whatever you believe. Like that's part of your job. But and they can be historically curmudgeon, very angry and negative. If you're wrong, the other side is allowed to come back. It's a two-way street. And I think a lot of the media, especially the old school print, think it's only a one-way street. He's allowed. I'm with you. It was about something bigger than that. Like when he eventually is the head coach of Texas or the Cowboys in a couple years. Like he's setting the tone for the fucking rocket ship that is Prime right now, and Shador and Shiloh. We got to give Shiloh his love. See that guy fucking crushing people across the middle?
Yeah.
Shiloh's the most
and
underrated
Deion
player
Jr.,
on the
man.
team.
He's the media. He's the man behind the media.
God, they're pumping it out. Underrated part about Deion, old school football guy.
Yeah.
Old school football guy. For all the progressive social media stuff, didn't they, in the spring and definitely in training, tackling to the ground? Like Deion actually, I was talking to Kawakami about this, much closer, because Kawakami compared him to Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Like, just making people uncomfortable, doing things weird. But their roots and who they are as football guys stems from like the mid-'80s. Schembechler, Bobby Bowden, tackling in practice. When you hear Deion talk about football, there was a scene in that game when he went over to Sonny Dykes when the player was down. Football guys like Deion Sanders, like talking about football. Like Deion's different when him and Sonny are just probably. I watched Sonny Dykes' press conference. Sonny was fucking blown away by how unreal they were. He was like, I've never seen anything like. I've been in college football for 30 years, never seen anything like that. But like the Bosa thing, like the 49ers haven't had. The only thing they would have had close to this was Alden Smith, and before it ever got to that, he had fallen off the wagon and was just in jail all the time.
Right.
But the Kaepernick contract's the fakest contract in the history of contracts. The Jimmy contract was a little ahead of its curve, but when you
it was
factor
the biggest at the time.
But when you factor in how many of like the group of the next tier guys, Rodgers still had another big contract in him. Mahomes was not even Mahomes yet. It was really about to explode, and it did. Right? If Rodgers doesn't resurrect his career and the star group of like Mahomes and Josh Allen don't come to fruition fast in Lamar, who knows? Maybe that number kind of gets, diminished, diluted. It never shoots up like it did, but these guys Mahomes became an all-time great player within 2 years. Josh Allen saved a franchise fast, right? Herbert, it just immediately was like, Jalen Hurts, it kind of just went on its crazy stretch over the last 3 or 4 years of these guys. Like, you got no choice. I mean, it's just, what are you going to do? And then even some of the randoms, right? Dak 160, Cousins is signing for a lot. So it got, I don't want to say inflated, but it is kind of inflated because I always say this in the NBA. I don't give a fuck what the rules are or whatever. Under no circumstances am I giving Jaylen Brown $300 million. Like, I'm trading him. Like, I can't do that. I can't sign my second best player to that contract who can't dribble. Like, it's like what are you gonna do? Like, I get in football when you have the quarterback, because unlike in basketball, your number 2 guy. Like, can I win a championship with this guy as my number 2? Clay, I had to max him out because I know he was injured, but he proved that he could win a championship. In football, you do get stuck once you get to that Dak kind of level. Even Lamar. Like, Lamar hasn't really proven it in the playoffs, but I understand doing it. But it does just kind of like, beside Mahomes, I'd even say Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I'm pretty confident on Jalen, but let's just see him do it another year. You don't really feel great. You feel good about the person, obviously, like Dak or Cousins, but like, they're not as good as the other guys. That's what sucks, right? At least when you pay Curry, like the top 5, 6 guys, you're like, I can win a championship with this guy. Giannis, Jokic, LeBron, Curry. I mean, there's like 6 of them. But you got to do it with like Dame and whatever. You ain't winning a championship with this guy. So like, you want to do business that way. At least with Nick Bosa, at his position, he's a championship game-changing guy, and he's on the list of 4 or 5 guys that, like, if you quote-unquote overpay and quote-unquote he wins, like, who gives a fuck?
I think what you just said is really specifically correct, that he's a championship-winning guy. As long as you're trying to win a championship without a star-level quarterback, which is what the Niners are trying to do, then you need a way to make the other team's star-level quarterback less of a star-level player in the one game you're going to play in the championship against Mahomes or against Josh Allen or against Joe Burrow, right?
But even in the NFC against Dak and Jalen, right?
Yeah. Less so against Dak, but yeah, I agree.
So he impacts Dak. Like Dak,
you're right.
Listen, I'm not the biggest Dak guy.
My point
is,
is,
he did throw 5 touchdowns in a playoff game
with less than Bosa's best, or if he's not like you, the NFC is still weak enough that you can. But there's a difference between being an NFC title contender and being a Super Bowl contender, given who's coming out of that other side of the bracket, right? But you're right. I mean, it applies to the NFC too. So, like, he is really specifically built for any team, but he's really specifically built for this team, given what they don't have, for as good as we think Brock can be, what they don't have at quarterback, which is one of those franchise carry the team to the Super Bowl guys. Like I said today, I did a quick stream earlier when the rap sheet thing came out. And I said the Niners are lucky they're not in the Chiefs position because the Chiefs play Thursday and Chris Jones isn't signed. And somebody made a great comment. He's like, don't ever say the Niners are lucky that they're not the Chiefs. I was like, good point. The Chiefs have Mahomes. They've got a championship. You're not lucky to not be them. You'd be lucky to be them, right? But I don't know how many games you can – I think we can keep talking about the contract. I do think there's another conversation on Bosa we should get to, which is what is the worst case scenario here with him, and can you weather that storm?
Well, this is how you win. You sit out games. No one's ever willing to do it because the money now, even when you feel you're getting screwed, Saquon Jacobs is still $12 million, right? We're not giving these guys league minimum. So the franchise tag is still elite. I don't care who you are. It's a ton of money. It's more money than you've ever made if you're those guys. on a per year basis, and it allows you big season to get paid again. So I think he's definitely prepared. Games. Chris Jones clearly is, right? I think as we're recording this, I think it would be a shock if Chris Jones is there, right, at this time.
Well, their game is it's Thursday. It's Tuesday. So
yeah, so it's a little over 48 hours. Honestly, that's like 53 hours. If we're recording this at 12, yeah, 5 times kickoff, 5. So yeah, not far away. He's not going to play. So I think Bosa is about a day or two away from not going to play. And listen,
so he plays Friday. You think he doesn't? He signs Friday. You think he plays Sunday?
I'd have to go back and look at the exact date. Now, he was holding in, but he was not practicing. Tomlin mentioned this of why they're preparing, because it'd be prudent. You're being prudent by preparing because you expect him to figure this out. And if he does show up, you're like, why would you not have prepared for such a great player? I feel like TJ definitely signed on like Monday or Tuesday.
I think it was Wednesday night, because they said it was the day before the season opener, even though they didn't play till Sunday. So I'm
pretty sure he had like 2 sacks and an interception in that game. Tomlin alluded to like him looking like he looked like TJ Watt. He did. So yeah, you can get to Thursday. I think the Watt family and the Bosa family have a lot in common in terms of like taking their nutrition and workouts very seriously, right? But I do think it's a little different.
It's a lot different.
Again,
TJ was in the building.
Yeah, I think
that's a big difference.
You give a guy that level of money, I'm sorry, I can't risk it all week 1 of the day of the first year of his contract, right? Like I got to do a feel out process.
You're saying you can't play him if he shows up Friday?
No. Not that I can't play him. This is the big leagues. I have to be very, very. It's very difficult because once he starts playing, he looks good. You push him, and then all of a sudden you get a hamstring injury. I'm sure it's going to be hot and humid. It's a very risky proposition. Like you said, it's risky with TJ. He's still training. He might not be practicing, but he's working out on his own in the facility. You're around him every day.
What if Bosa showed up fat? Like, did you read? I know you talked to Tim. I'm sure you talked to him about. He had a good piece. He wrote, the Niners probably felt incorrectly secure about the fact that, unlike with Debo, this guy stays in shape. So you're like, doesn't matter. We can take it up to 2 weeks before the season. He'll be in shape when he shows up. But maybe that gave them a false sense of security that they could keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, I don't even think it was kicking a can down the road. I just think they are the most powerful words you can ever have, I think, in business is no. And they are used to hearing some no's early on, but they've always got yeses when they really needed a yes. Since me and you have been around the team, that Harbaugh crew of guys, from Willis to Bowman to Staley to Vernon to all the guys they signed, Frank, and they were extending a lot of those guys early to this iteration of the Freds, the Trents, the Kittles. They've had a couple weird situations. I mean, I'm sure they lost a little sleep with the Trent, right? He could leave. Definitely the Debo situation was just weird. I think it probably was less uncomfortable than it probably seemed for them. But Fred, it's been pretty easy for them, man.
Yeah.
And this one, I would say the York era of something that matters at this level is they've never been this uncomfortable. And I think this guy ain't fucking around. Like, he ain't showing up. And he shouldn't. If you want to get what you want to get, sit down a game or two. That's the only way to get your 130, 140. Right? Because they're just going to keep going of like, precedent, this. It's like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Which happens all the time in all these other industries, right? It's like, well, this company, it's like, I don't care.
I'm not that guy.
Not only am I not that guy, I know you need me. We all know it. Like, I have the leverage. I have it. Like, as you saw, like, ultimately, like, really quickly, even though Trey's leverage was the trades, like, he had none. It's like, boom, traded him. Right? Purdy, like, oh, they like him, but go shitty for a month. See how that turns out. Like, Nick has all the cards, man. They really don't have any juice.
I think it's
like, I guess week 8, he has to show back up just so his contract tolls or whatever the word is.
That's the word.
But like that you can't go 8 games without this guy. You're going to play the Cowboys and the Giants. Hell, you're probably going to play the Steelers without him. Potentially. I mean, we'll see. I guess we still got I don't think you can sign him on Saturday and play.
Feels like it's got to happen by Thursday to feel okay about putting him out there for 25 snaps. Friday, I feel okay putting him out there. I heard one of the Steelers people say that they once did a I almost said Hufanga, not Hufanga. They're Hufanga. Polamalu contract on the plane on the tarmac. They signed a contract before they took off for a game, and then Polamalu got on the plane and played.
I remember a franchise. They played in Oakland. Oh, they're called the Raiders. This guy used to play for the Niners. Got in a bunch of trouble. Alden Smith, I think his name was just out of the league for a while in training camp. Had gotten in trouble. Someone signs him on like Friday, probably after lunch. And then Sunday, he's playing against the Bengals, and it did not go well. Now, that does not parallel this situation.
I was at that game.
Yeah,
that was you were at that game.
That was a murder, but the Bengals versus the Raiders.
It was Whitworth. Dominated him. And the other guy. Who's the other guy?
Oh, the dude with the titties from Alabama.
Yeah. I mean,
Something
it was.
Smith.
I remember watching it, feeling like Alden got taken advantage of. Isn't the word, but like nobody was looking out for him.
Yeah,
he did not belong on the field.
Well, the Bengals, they treated the Raiders as a whole. Remember, Pac-Man took Amari's head and slammed it into the helmet. His helmet had fallen off.
Oh yeah,
remember?
Yeah,
he grabbed Amari.
Wait, was that? Did you say was that Derek Carr's stiff arm game too?
Yeah, hurt his thumb. I think so. Yeah.
Or was that Derek's like rookie? Yeah, that what Bengals can't come that frequently. That would it, right?
No, that was it. That would have been it.
Andre Smith
actually turned around his career and solid player after the titties.
Yeah.
Did you see the picture of the Arkansas coach with the
I
Huckabee
did.
family?
Sam Pittman. Yeah.
Rough look.
I mean, there's only so many push-ups you can do. You're a head football coach. You got other things to do.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about the Bosa thing, if he misses a game and then you sign him to the deal, right? If he misses a game, you're like the second he misses a game, you are now not signing him to anything other than the deal that he wants, right? So I think he's been on your team now for several years.
I think we're already at that point. It's now like, are you guys going to tap out? Because he's not.
No. I know what I'm saying is
you're on the ground MMA style. It's like he's not tapping. Are you going to tap and end this?
So, but the point, John, is like he's been on their team for several years now. They've done a deal with him before, rookie deal. Remember that deal wasn't as easy as most rookie deals are. He wanted the money. He wanted wanted all up front, and rookie deals don't get structured that way.
Didn't Joey hold out of a rookie deal?
Yeah, Joey wanted it was the same deal. Like, well, you usually pay it this way, but I want it all now. Oh, but you get it eventually. Cool. Well, I want it now.
Yeah.
But this would
be money.
If he misses a game and then they end up paying him what he was asking for 3 weeks ago. Because I don't think he's saying more. I think he's saying no. Here's the number. Let me know when you're ready to meet the number. It would be a pretty colossal misread of your own guy to think that your guy's going to crack and then he doesn't crack. And it's one thing when it's a guy you don't really know or when your GM and your negotiator and your coach have changed. But they've known Nick Bosa his whole pro career, and they knew him when it came to signing him as a rookie. And if he holds out, basically they're saying, we don't believe you. You're gonna take our deal. You're not gonna miss a game. We don't believe you. It would be a pretty colossal misread of your own guy for him to hold out, and then you end up paying him anyway what he would have taken a month ago.
Totally agree. I just realized that I go on Gottlieb. Usually during the season we do this a little later, and I go on in 5 minutes.
What do you want to do? Pause the show?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could argue just this is pretty fluid situation. Just put this up.
Yeah, we could argue that.
But we got,
Yeah, 5 minutes?
More minutes. Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of topics we could hit another day too. I wanted to play. You want to hear Tomlin on Purdy? You want to do that in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, listen to this. This is today press conference Purdy.
Does your defense have to focus on for a quarterback like Brock Purdy when he hasn't had a ton of tape to study over the past couple weeks?
So the question is to Mike Tomlin, what are the keys that you focus on with Brock Purdy when there hasn't been a lot of tape?
It's less specifically about Brock Purdy, and it's more about how Kyle Shanahan chooses to utilize his quarterback within the schematics of what it is that he does. And so whether it's Purdy or Darnold or Garoppolo or anyone that, Matt Ryan or his days in Cleveland. We just see very similar things in terms of their approach to football. It's very quarterback friendly. It doesn't put them in a lot of adverse circumstances. It keeps them on schedule. And in doing so, it minimizes the potential for negativity. It's a great platform, particularly for a young guy to play and gain experience. And I think it's reflective of Purdy's journey a year ago and their collective journey a year ago. But I imagine his growth and development in that experience has him and them ready to take another step, just like we are with our young quarterback.
A lot of stuff stood out there.
Well, when a guy's not on a team, you ain't going to spend 1 second watching him. But is there a chance that they didn't – have they watched one tape of Trey Lance in the Steeler building?
No. Why would they?
Yeah, be a waste of their time.
Two things stood out to me. One, he goes straight to Darnold. He's like, Purdy, Darnold. So there, he knows Kyle well. Then he mentions Matt Ryan. Oh, he mentions Jimmy, then Matt Ryan, then the guys in Cleveland. Manziel? Coach Manziel. I don't know what the guys in Cleveland means. But clearly what he's saying is this is more about the coach than it is about the player. And maybe it's evolving into the being about the player. But it's about the coach. It's about the coach.
Every single person that talks about this offense, quarterback friendly, quarterback friendly, quarterback friendly. And one quarterback just couldn't figure it out. Quarterback friendly, quarterback friendly. As Mike said, they throw short and run long. Right. Yeah. That's the way he described it earlier in that press conference. Throw short and run long. And he knows these guys, right? There were some crossover. Kyle was in Tampa. He mentioned Forrester was in Tampa. It's weird. There's these weird connections.
Coached a lot of ass kickers, he said about Kasarik.
Of Gruden that, I do think a big picture thing with this team is going to be, to me, the Trey Lance thing is kind of dead. Right, that it's just they threw it to the trash.
He's on another team,
yeah. But I do think the Kyle quarterback conversation, until he just has a guy that he works with for 7 straight years, it's just always going to be a league story, always going to be something. The Darnold situation, I think he mentions Darnold because I don't think we're alone out here. I think the league talks about he likes this guy, man. And listen, they've, especially a veteran coach, they've all had their moments with a late drafted guy that had a moment. If he doesn't sustain it, and Tomlin's big on this, doing it over and over and over again, he will pivot. Now, I believe in Purdy. I think he's going to look good. I don't know necessarily, and this game's going to be hard. I think when the dust settles, the Cowboys, the Niners, if they get Bosa in, the Steelers, these are the top 3 or 4 teams that are going to be the number 1 defense in the league. If you tell me he throws 180 yards and it's a 17-13 type game, that's on the table. But you said it. You're the first person that I ever heard say it is don't expect some fucking long 9-inning Nolan Ryan leash here, because that is just not going to be the case. No. Now, I'm not saying it would have been Trey Lance 2022 lease with Jimmy, but the ship ain't going down with one quarter. This is not the Chiefs. This is not the Bills. That's not the way it's going to be treated. It will not be treated that way. And he'll just go this guy will just be the backup now, if it gets weird.
And he could come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have random quarterbacks contracts, right?
Yep. All right, is that for right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for hanging, everybody, and more content coming soon. And when Bosa signs, and it'll be about 8:30 p.m. on Friday night. Just you wait. Maybe we'll do something. All right.
If they do that during prime time, 9:30 in the morning Saturday, I'll lose my shit.
All right. We'll be back soon, everybody. Thanks for hanging. Later.